Hi everybody, I'm Shana Dressler and I'm the founder of the Social Innovators Collective, and I have a clicker because I'm the 11th hour replacement for Nate of Good Nick. So I'm cheating a little bit because I just came in on late. So I'm going to talk to you about how to set yourself up for success if you want to found a nonprofit or a social enterprise. So the Social Innovators Collective is an international network of emerging founders that are either nonprofit founders or social entrepreneurs, and what we're really focused on is financial sustainability and impact, because a lot of companies are failing mostly because they don't have the business part of their venture worked out. So a lot of what's in the news these days with the Millennial development goals and everything else is that 90% of the world is lacking clean water, shelter, and then there's a lot of articles recently about poverty in America. There's a lot of hunger happening even in New York City. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, well, what can I do about this? These are issues that are just overwhelming and disturbing, and I think all of us have something that we care about that we want to make an impact on. So my advice usually is, because it's so overwhelming and there's just so much going on, is to really pick a cause that you feel deeply connected to, something that you're up at night about, that you're on a rant about, that you're talking to friends about, like not just any old thing, because this is a really long haul. I mean, small business development is hard enough, and then there's a layer of complexity when it's going to be a social business or a nonprofit. And then I think you have to start to define what is success for you. So classically in America, a lot of what we define as success is financial success. Some people define success as how well liked you are or your popularity. And I think you have to start to figure out, if you're going to get into the social space, what are going to be the metrics that you're going to judge yourself by. Is it going to be how many lives you've changed? Is it going to be, there's a number of things you're going to have to think about. And I think impact has a lot to do with it, because a lot of people are doing great work, but they don't really have a lot to show for it. So the other thing that's really important, like in any business, is you really want to educate yourself on what issue you're going to be tackling, what new area that you want to start to work in. And then again, like any small business, you would want to figure out like who's in the space now, what are they doing, what is the good work that's being done, what's all the work that is not so great being done, so you can figure out where to insert yourself. So one of the biggest problems I've found, especially with millennials, is that they're jumping on airplanes and they're going abroad and they don't know the culture, they don't know the language, they have little understanding of really what the history of the international development has gone on. And this proves to be disastrous. I did a talk on a nerd night talk on 100 ways to save the world under $25, because there's all this really cool technology. And I think the issue here is that if you're not really plugged into where you're about to go and where you're going to be working, or even if you're working in inner cities and you don't come from those places or those neighborhoods, you have a high likelihood of not creating the impact that you're really looking for. So the big question, whether it's a social business or a non-social business, is like, how do you do all this? Most of us have been employed before we become entrepreneurs, and so we're not really trained to think about how to be strategic and what are going to be the building blocks to get to where you want to go. The reason why it's extra important when you're doing social businesses is all of a sudden your dreams and your passions are all about helping people. So if you don't have your ducks in a row and your business is not on solid ground, and you start to work with people that are very vulnerable and your project fails, it's not just your personal failure, it's also you're really hurting a lot of people who might be looking to you as kind of their shining light to get out of whatever situation they're in. So in other cases where there's some industries that it's great to iterate and it's really okay to fail, when you're dealing with other people, I think you just want to take extra time to figure out what you're about to do. So some of this is to figure out like what are your obstacles. I think a lot of us have obstacles around capital. If you're starting something out, you're by yourself, so who's going to help you? And then the obvious, or sometimes the not so obvious ones, like all the things that we don't know, that we don't even know, and therefore that becomes a liability in what you're trying to do. So again, now that we're on the social side of things, you really have to get very clear about what your values and your beliefs are. And I we all think we know them, but you don't really come up against them until you're talking to people. In some cases, if you want to be a fully integrated social business, you can't just be using any old cleaning materials. So you have to figure out where you're drawing the line in your business, because it's going to affect the economics of it. You're going to be in relationships with certain people. You're going to have conversations with various vendors, and you want to be knowing where do you stand with things around your values. So what's the biggest learning for me in this space has been that social entrepreneurs tend to understand a little bit about business, but many people entering into the nonprofit space don't really understand that they're running a business. It's actually called, the papers that you sign are called nonprofit. It's a nonprofit corporation, so you're actually running a business. Most people come out of a background where they're just really, really moved by the cause, and they are usually really jazzed about a program, but that program has to be housed within a company. And so what happens is that in 2009, the Giving 2010, it was a report, and it was something like 20% of nonprofits were out of business because they didn't file their tax returns, because they thought, well, we're a 501c3, a non-taxable corporation, therefore we don't have to pay taxes. So there's so many issues in the nonprofit sector that they don't get the whole business side of what they're doing. So this is another thing that just has blown me away. So I do a lot of these startup workshops, and I had to make the list of like all the things in the last 18 months I had to learn, starting from like you're whatever it is you do. Then you're an administrator, you're a marketing director, you're the photographer, you're the videographer, you're the salesperson, you're like an unimaginable list of professions that everybody has spent many years to really hone, and you become all of these things. So the next thing is there's a lot of buzz on the streets about venture capital and grants. Like, forget it, just delete. That's really, really bad advice, because basically VCs will fund about between 0.5 and 3% of the deals that come over their table. And grants are just so hard to get now. The nonprofit foundation mostly are wanting to fund mezzanine level nonprofits, not the ones that are just starting. So become an expert in crowdfunding. You can get something off you can raise $50,000 in 3 days. It's a game changer, these new platforms that are out there. So don't waste your time in the beginning if you want to found a nonprofit with learning how to write a grant, because your chances of getting one are so limited. Better to go out and find an amazing group of people that want to support what you want to do, and that's how you'll get started. And the same is for a social enterprise or just any business. There's really some interesting platforms like Launched and Rocket Hub, and I can give you a list of them that are doing work in that space. So in the social space, there's more complexity because of supply chain, who you're working with. There's legal problems that are not the same. So you just want to take a little bit more time, and again, because you're involving and potentially influencing other people. And there's some industries like in the design and kind of engineering, innovation and iterating and making mistakes and kind of figuring it out really quickly is fine, and technology is another sector. This is just another sector where you just want to take a little bit more time with it. But not to worry about the mistakes, just do all of your brainstorming up front before you go out into whatever field or whatever people that you want to serve. This is just a real quick anecdote I wanted to share with you. So this is part of research. So there was an American NGO that went to North India in the state of Rajasthan, and they put in fountains all over the place. For whatever reason, somebody on the team wanted to paint them. Well, they did no research around any kind of cultural sensitivity issues, and they painted it a color that for that community equated it with infertility. And it happens in water. Women are the ones that go to wells, usually not men. So imagine that you've just done a multi-million or billion-dollar project, and all you did wrong was you painted the fountain that was meant to, give potable water to this community, because you just didn't pay attention to detail. So it can be really disastrous. And just like, a number of the speakers have said, it really just takes a village. So you don't, in the beginning it's great to do it on your own, but then you quickly have to put together a solid team. And then I just wanted to leave you with this, because it's really hard, and you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to be tired. And so I think for me, one thing I've seen is like just really being kind and remembering that, if you're up to do something that's going to change the world, or even if you're just, whatever it is that you're up for, that, we're all working hard, and you're working with people, and we're in a city that's stressed out, and it's just really important just to you know, breathe, exhale, and just remember we're dealing with people that really, everybody wants to do good things in the world. So thank you very much, and thank you to the clicker.